Hi, I'm Christina Adams, and this is the place where we talk about God, Christianity, and life. Right now, I'd like to talk about these two books. This is 1984 by George Orwell and A Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. Now, both of these books, they were written almost, well, now it's getting pretty far back there, almost uh, 60 to 80 years ago. Uh, Brave New World was written in 1932, roughly, and 1984 was written in 1948 and published in 1949. So it was, he just switched the digits in the last one there, which I always thought was kind of fun. Now, if you've never read either of them, 1984 is by George Orwell. He did not like totalitarianism, but he was sort of pro-socialism, and he wrote 1984 basically about some of the evils that he had seen when he was in the Spanish War in the I'm gonna say the 1930s somewhere, and then and he uh, yeah, it's basically about this man named Winston Smith who works for a propaganda company, and he goes about and edits history, and any words that are no longer used today, he goes in and deletes them all, and then any words that, any meanings that have changed, he just flips the meaning, and sometimes the meaning of the word changes multiple times to fit whatever, so it can mean opposite things, and so they're constantly having to update all of their history and all of their literature. And he finds himself, he also is constantly monitored by the government. So there's a TV in his room that will tell him to exercise better if he's not doing it hard enough, and such. And so he wants to get out of this, and he ends up meeting this woman named Julia, and they kind of she encourages him in challenging the society, which probably never goes well. And so that's kind of what that one is about. What a lot of people tend to see when they think about 1984 is they see the constant surveillance, the lack of privacy, and the changing of the dictionary. Those are three big things that people will look at in the present and say, like the concept of Big Brother, that comes from 1984. And that's why people were saying, Big Sister is watching you with Hillary Clinton a while back, as they were sort of connecting her to 1984. Whether it was justified or not is beside the point. That's kind of where that reference comes from. So now with Brave New World, Brave New World was written a little bit earlier, and it's also about a sort of dystopian society in which the every class of people, they're all basically determined what type of person they're going to be or what type of class they're going to be before they're born, and then they are hypnotized or basically trained through some form of psychological deterrence, basically to become the kind of person that will enjoy doing the kind of job that they're given. So there are alphas, there are betas, there are gammas, deltas, and epsilons, and each class is very glad that they're that class and not another class. For various reasons, like they're taught to dislike a certain color because, oh, the deltas wear that color, and that kind of just differentiates the whole society. And what they then do, though, is the higher up, the elites, they run the whole society, and in their spare time they basically have orgies and medicate themselves to death, technically. So they're constantly taking some kind of drug that will enable them to ignore any of the bad side effects that they, or the bad feelings that they might have had. It's very much a society that has no feelings. Or no negative feelings. It's all about getting rid of the bad feelings with the drugs, and then being able to live in just a happy, peaceful kind of life where you don't notice anything that's bad going on, because you're just constantly self-medicating, and or finding different ways to divert yourself from potential pain. And so the society then, it also has characters in it who are not as happy with that society. And eventually there's this one character who particularly he wants he wants the right to be unhappy. And that's his big deal, is he wants to be able to suffer. He wants to struggle. He doesn't want things handed to him. He wants to be able to work for it himself. And so it's kind of like a battle between those two things. So now, when both of those stories were written, with Aldous Huxley's, the people will tend to see how everyone is so focused on pleasure, or how everyone is constantly like needing to have some kind of intellectual or electronic stimuli to distract them from everyday life, and then also the whole drug atmosphere, where people want to take drugs to not feel anymore and to be happy, and or to forget whatever might have happened in the past. And so those are a lot of the things that where the society, the people in Brave New World, they don't care to challenge what's going on because they're too busy having fun. And so that's something that a lot of people will focus on with that. And so in many circles, which society we're currently living in, whether it's Aldous Huxley's Brave New World or George Orwell's 1984, both of those are often debated, and they're normally like your option is either 1984 or Brave New World, and that's kind of it. But the thing is that both of those stories were written by men who did not necessarily have a Christian outlook on life, in some cases at all, and they both are sort of the they're really just both of those stories are kind of depressing in the conclusions of things, where it's like nothing gets better, and the things that you do don't matter, and this society is just going to exist, you can't escape it, kind of thing. Or you won't want to escape it, and you'll just be stuck in that. And the thing is that in reality, there are a bunch of things that both of those two books didn't really consider. One is just how fast technology has moved. The internet was not even a thing, and how much the internet has changed everyone's life in the last 20 years, 30 years, is just really, really big. And then also how everyone interacts with each other socially through the internet. Like, that's something else that people didn't, that either Orwell or Huxley didn't really consider. But also, the big thing that both of them didn't consider is the actual world that we're living in. Now, the fun thing about dystopians is that you can kind of create a whole world that has, a society and a government, and it works because it's the story of the book. But you can't really do that with reality, because what the world that we're currently living in is the one that exists, and that's the one that we're going to have to engage with, and there are certain rules and things that are not necessarily in the books. Like, neither Huxley nor Orwell really even mention God much, and if they do, it's not, God is not a positive, realistic character in either of the stories. Well, the thing is that God does exist, and he has always been working throughout society, and throughout history, and throughout every culture. And you can see a lot of the things that God has done, even inside totalitarian governments and regimes, to the point where those forms of government, they just never really last because they're not from God. And so eventually they will all crumble, and they will all fall, and we won't be left having to live in a dystopian reality forever. Also because Jesus will return and he will reign, and it will be the best kind of reign that the best kind of government that we will ever have. So those are just some thoughts on 1984 and Brave New World, and on God's World. So if you have read either of them, what were your thoughts on them? And also, what do you think in reality, in the reality that we live in with God? Like, what kind of world do you see God being able to create? So Write me a comment below and let me know. Thanks.